Today we're going to learn about adverbs. You'll watch the video and practice with a worksheet, taking notes and identifying adverbs. Then we'll check your answers together. An adverb is a word that describes a verb, adjective, or another adverb. Let's look at some examples. The girl runs quickly. The bird is very small. The students always study so quietly. In the first sentence, the girl runs quickly, we see an example of an adverb that describes the verb. What is the verb or action of this sentence? Runs. Now, do you see a word in the sentence that describes how the girl runs? Quickly. Quickly describes runs, and therefore quickly is an adverb. Next, the bird is very small. This sentence has an example of an adverb that describes an adjective. Do you see an adjective in this sentence? Small is an adjective. It describes the noun bird. But there's an adverb that describes small. It tells us how small. Do you see that word? Very. Very is an adverb because it describes the adjective small. And finally, the students always study so quietly. In this sentence, we have an example of an adverb that describes another adverb. Quietly is an adverb that tells how the students study. But there's also an adverb that tells us how quietly they study. Do you see that word? So. So is an adverb because it describes another adverb, quietly, by telling how quietly. An adverb describes a verb, adjective, or another adverb by telling these details. Adverbs tell where, when, how much, and how often. Here are some examples. Where? We parked the car here. The action or verb of the sentence is parked. Do you see the word that tells where we parked? Here. Here is an adverb because it tells where we parked. He played soccer today. The action or verb of this sentence is played. Do you see the word that tells when he played soccer? Today. Today is an adverb because it describes the verb played by telling when he played soccer. When did he play? Today. How? They speak quietly. The action or verb of this sentence is speak. Do you see the word that tells how they speak? Quietly. Quietly is the adverb that tells how they speak. How much? They run so quickly. This sentence has two adverbs. The action or verb is run. Quickly tells how they run. And so is an adverb that tells how much or how quickly they run. How often? Maria usually calls me at 5 p.m. In this sentence, the action or verb is calls. Usually tells how often Maria calls me. Details adverbs tell. Examples. Here are more examples of details that adverbs tell us about verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Where? We saw the adverb here in a sentence on the previous slide. Other adverbs that tell where include there, everywhere, and outside. When? We saw the adverb today, but also the adverbs yesterday, Friday, early, and now all tell when something happened. How? Quietly, happily, loudly, and gently are all examples of adverbs that tell how something was done. How much? So, to, very, almost, and enough are all examples of adverbs that tell how much or how. How often? Usually, always, sometimes, and never are all adverbs that tell us how often something occurs. Remember, these are only examples. There are hundreds of other adverbs that tell where, when, how much, and how often. These will just help you understand when you see adverbs that describe these details. Adverbs practice. Instructions: find the adverbs. Each of these 5 sentences has one or more adverbs. Find each one along with the word it describes. We'll check your answers in a few minutes. Number 1. The fish swam slowly in the very warm water. Number 2. The orange car always works better than the yellow car. Number 3. Today, my sister went to school early in the morning. Number 4. They often run outside. Now they are playing here, inside. Number 5. We laughed so hard that our stomachs really hurt. Pause the video while you work. Are you ready to check your answers? Let's check. Number 1. The fish swam slowly in the very warm water. This sentence has 2 adverbs. What are they? Slowly and very. Now remember, adverbs describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. So now let's find the words that slowly and very describe in the sentence. First, let's look at slowly. What was or happened slowly in this sentence? What one word does slowly tell us more about? It tells us more about the action or verb swam. It tells us how the fish swam. How did the fish swim? Slowly. And very. Very also tells us more detail about one other word in the sentence. Do you see which word it is? Very tells us more about the adjective warm. It tells us how warm the water was. How warm was it? Very warm. Number 2, the orange car always works better than the yellow car. This sentence has 2 adverbs. What are they? Always and better. Which word in the sentence does always tell us more about or describe? Does always describe orange, car, or works? Always describes the action or verb, works. It tells us when. When does the orange car work? Always. And what about better? Which word in the sentence does better tell us more about? Better also describes works. It tells how the orange car works. How does the car work? Better than the yellow car. Number 3. Today my sister went to school early in the morning. This sentence has 2 adverbs. What are they? Today and early. Let's find the word that these two adverbs describe or modify. Which word in the sentence does today describe? I'll give you some choices. Does it describe my, sister, went, or school? Today describes the action or verb went because it tells when. When did my sister go to school? Today. Now what about early? Which word in the sentence does early describe? I'll give you some choices. Does it describe went, school, or morning? Early also describes the verb went. It also tells when, just a different detail. When did my sister go to school? Early. Number 4. They often run outside. Now they are playing here, inside. These two sentences have 5 adverbs. What are they? Often, outside, now, here, and inside. Let's look at the first one, often. Which word in the first sentence does often describe? Does it describe they, run, or outside? Often describes the verb run. It tells how often. How often do they run? Often. What about outside? Which word does that describe? Outside also describes the verb run because it tells where. Where do they run? Outside. Let's look at the next sentence. Now. Which other word or words does now describe in this sentence? Does it describe they, are playing, here, or inside? Now describes the verb are playing. This is a two-part verb. Now tells us when they are playing. When are they playing? Now. What about here? Here also describes the verb are playing because it tells us where. Where are they playing? Here. And same with inside. Inside describes are playing because it tells us where they are playing. Just a different detail. Where are they playing? Inside. And number 5, we laughed so hard that our stomachs really hurt. This sentence has 3 adverbs. What are they? So, hard, and really. Which word in the sentence does so describe or tell us more about? First, let's look at the verb laughed. Does so help us understand more about laughed? We laughed so. No, it doesn't help us understand the verb. So which word does it describe? So helps us understand hard. It tells us how hard. Now what about the adverb hard? What does it describe? Hard describes the verb laughed. It tells how we laughed. How did we laugh? Hard. And finally, the adverb really. Which word in the sentence does really describe? Really describes the verb hurt. It tells how much our stomachs hurt. How much did they hurt? They really hurt. Adverb or adjectives. Sometimes adverbs and adjectives are confusing because they both describe other words in a sentence. The difference is adverbs describe verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, while adjectives describe nouns and pronouns. Let's look at examples. The excellent students quietly read. In this sentence, read is the verb, or the action. Do you see the adverb that describes the verb? Quietly. Quietly is an adverb because it describes a verb. Now let's look at the same sentence, but an adjective in the sentence. The excellent students quietly read. Remember, adjectives describe nouns and pronouns. Students is a noun in this sentence. Excellent describes students. Therefore, excellent is an adjective because adjectives describe nouns. Adverb or adjective practice. Instructions. Label the word as an adverb or adjective. Number 1. The doctor was careful. He called the patient quickly. Number 2. The small chair broke suddenly. Number 3. Your hamburger has many tiny onions. Number 4. A book in the corner was completely new. Number 5. We always drink the clean water. For each underlined word, label it as an adverb or adjective. Also, go ahead and circle the word that the adverb or adjective describes and write its part of speech. We'll check your answers in a minute. Pause the video while you work. Are you ready to check your answers? Let's check. The doctor was careful. He called the patient quickly. What part of speech is careful? Is it an adverb or an adjective? Careful is an adjective. How do we know that? Well, what word in the sentence does careful describe? It describes doctor. And what part of speech is doctor? Doctor is a noun because it's a person. We know that careful is an adjective because adjectives describe nouns. He called the patient quickly. Is quickly an adverb or an adjective? Quickly is an adverb. How do we know that? Well, what word in the sentence does quickly describe? Does it describe he, called, or patient? Quickly describes called. Called is a verb or an action. Quickly is an adverb because adverbs describe verbs. Number 2. The small chair broke suddenly. What part of speech is small? Is it an adverb or an adjective? Small is an adjective. How do we know? Because it describes chair, and chair is a noun. Adjectives describe nouns. What about suddenly? Is it an adverb or an adjective? Suddenly is an adverb. We know that because suddenly describes broke. Broke is a verb. Adverbs describe verbs. Number 3. Your hamburger has many tiny onions. What part of speech is many? An adverb or an adjective? It depends on which word many describes. Which word in the sentence does many describe? It describes onions. Onions is a noun, so many is an adjective. Now, you might think that many describes tiny because it's right beside and before that word. But actually, many doesn't tell us any other details or any other information about tiny. Many tells us more information about the noun onions because it tells us how many. How many onions? Many. What about tiny? What word does tiny describe in the sentence? Tiny also describes onions. So tiny is also an adjective. Number 4. A book in the corner was completely new. With this sentence, let's start with the word new. Is new an adverb or an adjective? New is an adjective. Now, which word in the sentence does new describe? Does it describe book, corner, was, or completely? New describes book. The book was new. How do we know that new describes book and not corner? Well, read the sentence once again. A book in the corner was completely new. Is this sentence telling us that the corner was new? No. This sentence is telling us that the book was new. That's how we know that new describes book. And book is a noun. That means new is an adjective. What about completely? Which word in this sentence does completely describe? Completely is an adverb because it describes new, and we already know that new is an adjective. Adverbs describe adjectives. Remember, an adverb can describe a verb, or an adjective, or another adverb. Adjectives only describe nouns or pronouns. Number 5. We always drink the clean water. Is always an adverb or an adjective? Always is an adverb. How do we know that it's an adverb? Because in this sentence, always describes drink, and drink is the verb of the sentence. What about clean? Clean is an adjective because it describes water, and water is a noun. Adjectives describe nouns, so clean is an adjective. Adverbs, the end. Our adverbs practice for today is complete. I hope this video helped you understand what an adverb is and how to identify it. Thank you for watching.